Hello and welcome to the Ivy League Sisters podcast, where you're invited into the world of high-achieving women who earned that coveted Ivy League degree and now are here to get real and honest about the pressures and expectations that come with claiming this achievement. I'm Lauren Balukjian, and I'm the founder of Ivy League Sisters, a mentorship community where intellectually curious and slightly rebellious women band together to support each other through the personal and professional seasons of life. In this podcast, we peel back the layers of perfection to reveal the authentic, often messy, and always inspiring stories of women who have been where you are. So whether you're an Ivy League graduate, a high achiever in any field, or simply someone striving to live a more authentic life, the Ivy League Sisters podcast is a place where you can realize you're not alone. And if you're new here, like and follow this podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes. I hope you enjoy the conversations. Hi, Julie.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Wondering why I signed up for this.
I was thinking about you this morning and I'm like, oh, I bet you she's like nervous and thinking, why did I sign up for this?
Yep, exactly. You know me.
And then I started to feel myself getting nervous and I'm like, oh no, we're going to feed off each other's nerves. No, we're going to have fun.
We'll be fine. I think we'll be good.
So, it's funny because I was thinking about where to start today and I'm a big believer that things just kind of fall exactly where they need to fall without having to sort of like force and search for it. So I was on the Peloton this morning. I was doing a workout and I'm listening to this podcast, which I've never listened to before. It's Trevor Noah's Now What? And he's like a South African comedian and writer. And he had Adam Grant on his show. And you familiar with him?
I love Adam Grant. Yes.
Okay. I saw your face light up. So if someone's listening and they don't know Adam Grant, he calls himself an organizational organizational psychologist, I think.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he's a professor and he's a writer. And he was saying, you always hear the expression, great minds think alike. And he goes, I believe great minds don't think alike. And then you popped in my head. And the memory of when we were on the retreat together, and I'm going to paint the picture for people who weren't there and they're listening. Like we're at this retreat and we're on the cliff of an ocean and you're walking up and we're doing this whole ceremonial moment of releasing and letting go and stepping into our own. And I remember looking in your eyes so sincerely and being like, Julie, I am just, so honored to have witnessed all of your growth and your change. And if I have one wish for you, it's that you just bring more of your weirdness to come out or something to that effect, using the word weird. And I didn't catch it at the time at all, like what was internally happening inside you. But I know that the next day you had the courage to come and talk to me about when I said that, the meaning that is behind that word for you. And that got me thinking about how, we can say words, but there can be so much more meaning behind it and what we associate it with. And so when I heard that phrase this morning, great minds don't think alike, it was like, yeah, we both have these great minds, but we were not thinking alike in terms of what our definition of weird is. Because here I am thinking I'm paying you a compliment. And for you, it was received, even though you, I think, knew my intention, it had a different meaning behind it.
Yes, I remember that well. And it just, I don't know how much you want to focus on it, but like in that moment was like, I just felt like I kind of melted. I was like, I've spent, all of this time trying my whole life, like not to be weird, right? To put up this perfect mask and it, really caught me off guard. And we were talking after, if you had said quirky, like that's great. I definitely could be quirky. And so that choice of semantics and what those words mean. And it's my older daughter is very interested in languages and linguistics. So we have a lot of these conversations at home that even across cultures, how different words or phrases or descriptions of how different cultures use words for time and how that's reflected in their values. And it's interesting, but knowing the intention and knowing somebody is also where we can allow grace to come in for each other, where, from your perspective, you could say, just shake it off. It was a compliment. And for me to be like, oh, I appreciate the honesty in her perspective, but she certainly wasn't intending to hurt me or, have any malevolence there.
Yeah, I love that it invited our conversation to go into a more like uncomfortable and awkward space, having the dialogue, right? Like you could have easily just brushed it off, also just justified to yourself, like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to make this into a thing and I'm just going to, trust that what she meant. But it brought me so much closer to you by us having this. Like, I still remember the next day we're sitting in the hot tub talking, and you're like, I don't even remember how you broached it. And I immediately then felt the like shame wall of like, oh my gosh, oh no. But then talking, even giving a voice to that, to you to say, hey, I'm feeling bad about this now, but I'm also feeling grateful that we're having this conversation. And I think the nugget of it is sometimes like when we're working through something or we're processing through something or change is happening, like there's a mess in the middle. Right. And I think us having that little bit of a mess in the middle to talk through it, and it's like, okay. And then we kind of talked it out and it's like, and now what? Right. So I just wanted to start there because I think there's a lot of value for women to realize when we might be mishearing something or misinterpreting something, or it does mean something to us, but then we don't say something to honor our own perspective and voice. Really connect.
Absolutely. And just learning too for myself, like to not take myself so seriously, like, she thinks I'm weird. So even, if I have a negative connotation, like to find the fun in that or the curiosity of that. And I thought of you too, tomorrow's my birthday. And so I'm going to go to dinner with my family, but I'm adding some fun to it. So I got some different 80s clothes, got a crimper, and we're going to go dressed in 80s outfits tomorrow. So I thought of you both adding the fun and the weird. Like, we're definitely going to look weird. It's a new restaurant in town that's described as like classy casual. And I don't know that really involves the 80s vibe. So my kids are a little unsure about that. But I think, you could find some classy somewhere in the 80s.
Oh, yes. Oh, you have to share a picture. You have to share a picture with me and for the community, because I think we'll all just love it and eat it up. Um, as you were saying that, it was reminding me of with my daughters. I know you've got a couple daughters and I have 3 girls and a son, but my they're in that stage right now where they're like picking on each other and saying sometimes mean things. And so one of my daughters has come up with this comeback. So if someone says to her, like, you're weird or you're stupid, she has this little song. It's like, you can take it as a compliment. Do. You can like turn it around. And so it's been just like a fun way to, again, realize how we decide to see the world, like the lens that we choose to, embrace any sort of situation. So I know that you've got, are your girls teenagers? I know at least one is, both.
Yes, both.
Okay. Are you open to sharing what that's been like being a mom that's come from a high achieving background and now raising girls who have so much pressure in the world, social media? I mean, it's a lot. So like, how do you navigate that?
It is definitely a process. And I'm still learning every day. I'm sure you've heard, your kids hold up a mirror to you is 100% true. I've learned so much about myself through doing my best to parent them. They're, amazing kids, just absolutely fill my entire heart. And the teenage years have been interesting for me in that it's been the biggest lesson I think I'm learning is the value in letting go. As probably my personality definitely is somebody who um, I tend to lean towards control, things that I can, when I'm in control, I feel calm and capable. And when things are out of my control, that moves into my discomfort zone.
And kids
And
definitely push that button of
yes,
taking away
teenage
our
kids.
control, especially teenagers.
Yes, at this point you've had the control over the years of trying to teach and impart the values that are important to you, and hoping that they learn and decide for those on their own, and this is their testing ground for all of that. And I pretty quickly learned that the tighter I tried to have control, the more quickly our relationships would start to deteriorate. And as I was willing to let go and just allow them that room to, um, kind of, again, a little bit cliche, but make their own choices, learn from their own mistakes, make their own decisions. Now, I'm sure they would tell you I'm not the best at that. I'll say, you can make your own decision, but there's some, underlying insinuations perhaps towards what I think the decision should be. They also, though, as girls, can read into you and your body language and facial expression, sometimes even more than I think what's there. And so there's so many nuances and layers, and they're such complex creatures that when we relate with each other, there's surface level and then that underground level, and often some misreadings on both parts between those. But I definitely have found that by letting go, it's brought us a lot closer. And reminding myself, it's also been a good time that I've met you and embarked on this kind of time to take care of myself and reflect on myself, in that one, it gave me the space to allow them to do what they needed to do, by me kind of, again, holding that mirror up and saying, I have a lot here that I need to work on and control and grow. And I need to take care of me as much, maybe even more so, than I need to take care of them. And a lot of some of my motivation for this is to model better behavior, in the sense of mostly self-care types of behaviors, in that at one point I was feeling so empty inside, that my hope would be that they have the tools so that they don't get to a point like that in life. Letting go. So as
Yeah.
my oldest is coming into her senior year of high school, it definitely has hit me a bit harder. Now it almost feels like not a final letting go, but an end of the chapter of this, time at home as a core unit family. And so that's my current struggle, is I'm on the one hand so excited for her. She is she is the neatest child, so brilliant, so in love with life and passionate and quirky. She has very different interests from what I had. And I'm so excited to see where she goes, but I'm also, it's very bittersweet, sad that these first 18 years are coming to a close, and I'm excited for the next chapters, but I would like to reread some of the previous ones as well.
Yeah. I want to acknowledge you, Julie, because you have really, I've had the honor, the privilege to have witnessed so much of your own willingness to look in the mirror and do it in the spirit of wanting to, like, not be that person that's telling their daughters what to do and how to be, but really showing, like you said, and modeling it. So
And through that, I've definitely made some changes, even to I'd say some core life philosophies. So I would say, if you had asked me when I was 15 or 20, like, what's your, what kind of drives you? What's your philosophy? And I would say, like, work hard, play hard. Like, I'm always going, have this long list of goals and achievements, and I'm going to get them. And, I'm going to get them as fast as I can. And that's not my goal anymore. It's nobody ever said in that work hard, play harder, and I didn't come up with it myself of like the and take time to rest part, like that got left out for
Right.
me.
That was not included. Yeah.
Not included. And rest, and along with rest, recover, rebuild, restore, like all of these things that, at least for me, weren't happening when I was working hard and playing hard. And it's not that I wasn't enjoying it. I loved my work, I loved my play. Um, but then I just kind of ran out. I ran to empty, and it really caught me as a shock. It was kind of like, what happened?
I hear
I
you.
should be able to keep pushing. There must be something wrong with me, because I, I'm kind of feel like I'm on fumes now, and it kind of hit me. I don't know if I keep doing this, where I'm going to end up. I feel like I'm going to end up just stalled and in that stalling, kind of lonely and empty, despite having absolutely everything anybody could want. The inside of me was kind of drying up, and I felt like I had lost myself and my own interest to all of these external factors. So now, I don't know that I have a new philosophy quite yet, but it definitely is it. I'm in that I've slowed down to listen for what that is for me right now.
Yeah. Okay. So help me out with this because I struggle. So when you were saying all of that, it was like you were my mirror, like my 20-year-old self, same deal. Mine was the harder you work, the luckier you get. So it was like, I better work harder if I want to have this luck. And it's all of that wrapped up. But I also think, and I'm curious if you agree or have a different perspective, that if I bring myself back to 20-year-old Lauren and me and you were sitting here and said, hey, Lauren, we want to talk to you. Like, rest is really important too. And so is recovery. Like, I think it would have fallen on deaf ears. Like, it would have been an eye roll. Like, okay, right? So, what do you think about that?
Yes, and I think I would have said, I don't know, yes, for most people, but not for me. I can do it because I don't know why I would think that I could, but I wouldn't say in general that it was a bad idea, but somehow I saw that I could push through it. I could stay up all night studying, get up for morning practice, do everything I needed to do, go hang out with friends at night. And like, another one was sleep. It was kind of a joke, but sleep is for the weak. Sleep was a really big problem because I felt like it was getting in the way of all of these other things I wanted or needed to do. And in one of our groups, with a group of women, I remember one woman saying, oh, I love sleep. I've never had a problem sleeping. I look forward to sleep every night. It's a luxury. And that was so foreign to me. And I've really tried to embrace that of, I get to kind of snuggle in here and rest. And that was it was just something you had to do because physiologically you needed it between all of these other things. And if I could minimize that as much as possible, I could get on to all of these goals faster. So I don't think I would have been receptive. But I still would have liked to have heard it, I think.
Yeah. It was making me think of the modeling. Like if we see someone who's modeling it, we might be more willing to embrace it rather than even being told it. Like, for example, with my kids, they see me resting. Like I do nap in the middle of the day if I feel my body just needs it. And my mom never did that. Ever, 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 ever. I never saw that woman sit down. She was always cleaning or cooking, doing something. And that was a message, right? That was her like subliminally, without saying any words, telling me you need to go, go, go. She was sending me a message, which then I internalized and did it in my own form, right? For me, it was continuously working, working, working. And my hope is that, by us as women making more of this conscious decision to take a break, practice self-care, and show them that and talk about why. Like my kids know I'm like, mom is feeling really stressed and overwhelmed. And they can see it. Like I think you were saying your daughters can pick up on this stuff. I think our children are so perceptive and intuitive. And so my hope is that when they get to that place where they're feeling that overwhelm or the empty or the burnout, like maybe it doesn't hit them till like they're 30, that it's less of a there's something wrong with me. I need fixing and broken, and more of like, oh, this is what mom was going through. Oh, and she was okay and she was fine. Like, I get it now. Like, hopefully it clicks in that kind of way.
And I think along with that is um tying, I think if you were talking to me at 20 and could have tied it to my goals at the time, that by taking the time to rest, you might actually perform better, or be better able to achieve that goal, which for now is not, probably not the best motivator. But I think it does hold true that when you're rested, you're thinking more clearly, you're able to have faster thought processes, you might have new ideas that don't come when you're exhausted. And versus, maybe like an athlete, you're just going, going, going. But if you don't take that time for things to heal and recover, you're not going to be at that peak performance. So that may be another way to look at it, if for people who are in the seasons where that if in that work hard, play hard, and take time to recover and rebuild in order to work harder, play harder,
Well,
in
exactly. What
order
you
to
just
reach
said
those
was,
goals.
I don't want to skip over this, because what you just said was really a wisdom of brilliance, which is, if you can take an idea and link it to whatever that person is motivated to in their life, they can hear it and they can receive it differently. And I think so often it's back to perception and how we all see the world from our lens. But if we can take that curiosity and really step back and think, what does this woman care about? Like, what is going to motivate her? And how can I tie in what I think might really help her, but in a way that will resonate and be important to her?
And how and maybe inquiring as to what the baseline thought is, like, why were we opposed to rest at 20? For me, because I felt rest equaled lazy, and I wanted to be anything but lazy. That was, as bad as being called weird. Like, that was not going to be a label. And yet, so I didn't want to be lazy, hence I didn't rest. But if somebody would have said, by resting you can, have, reach X, Y, or Z, or get to these goals. So I think stepping back to understand, what our barriers are to why we're not doing things is a good place to start.
Okay, that's fascinating, because our whys are really, so we both have the same sort of thought of, I don't want to rest and I want to get there, but my why has nothing to do with lazy. Like, call me lazy all day long, like, it's okay. For me, it was all about like, and this is back to like, they were having like a values conversation right now, but my value of efficiency and speed and this competitive spirit, like, I'm a competitor at heart. Like, it is deep in there. And so it's like, if I'm taking a break, in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not getting there as fast as I need to. So if someone could say to me, it's kind of like, when you're training for a marathon, like, you can't just go, 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 go. You'll injure yourself. You'll get hurt. And if someone could have linked it to, you're going to get there faster. This is the turtle versus the hare thing happening. And I've had to experience that so much in my entrepreneurial journey of like,
I'd say one of my strengths is the ability to focus very intently. And that has helped me get through all the education I've got through. I think it has made me good at the job I'm currently doing. As the whole rest of the world could be going down in flames, and I would be focused on whatever I put my mind to, and not be swayed. But when you merge that with rapidity of reaching goals, I think then, along that journey, everything is just kind of a blur. As I was running through, and at the time that was fine, but now that I've sat back, I feel like I missed out. Like, what was that scenery? I have to think really hard to remember it. And that's one of the things that really scared me as I kind of reached this point of feeling empty, was feeling like everything this initial chapter has really whizzed by, and I got really frightened that I didn't check out that scenery as much along the way. And so I think where I am now is just stopping to breathe and look around, look behind, look forward, and taking stock of where that is. And I don't know which path I'm going to continue on from here in several ways. But it feels just kind of amazing to just stop at where I am on this journey and look around 360 degrees. But it had to come for me at to running out of fumes before I was willing or able to see that I needed to do that.
yeah, well, you are one of the most humble people I know, and we haven't even talked about what you do. It's been like people are probably thinking, what does she do? Um, can you share with us? I mean, this is a compliment. Total badass. Julie Bradley is a total Dr. Julie Bradley is a total badass. I mean, you work in a male-dominated industry. You work in an industry that is going through a lot of changes and transitions. So can you share what exactly it is that you do and what that journey's been like?
Yeah, so I work in healthcare. I'm a physician, a radiation oncologist. One of the three main modalities that are used to treat cancer: radiation, surgery, and medications. And I focus mainly on currently on people with breast cancer, although for most of my career, I also worked with children with cancers, and have been out of training for 12 years now. And so I love so much about what I do and the people I've had the opportunity to connect with in vulnerable moments and moments where it's just hard to even put into words, kind of those feelings and connections that can be made as we figure out the best approaches for moving forward with the treatments available, and moments of just high elation when things are going well, and moments of being scared and not knowing what's next when things aren't going well. And I would say it's kind of remarkable. I got through as many years in this career as I have without taking that time for myself. And I think some of that feeling empty was giving to the people I was caring for, to as much as I could, to the bottom of my depths of my insides, and but not refilling along the way, and perhaps carrying some of that weight along with me without processing it, and just kind of stuffing it down, because it's hard to feel that. It certainly by no means taking away from the people walking through that. On the provider side, for me, there's scars that develop with every person that I've met, and those scars have made me stronger and made me view the world in certain ways, and I'm very grateful for them. Um, but they're still there, and they're part of me, and when you just stuff that down and don't take the time to process, for me, that I what was difficult, and advice I give to my current trainees is to, nobody talked about it. I guess I assumed you knew what you're signing up for, what you're getting into. You chose this, so there's no room to complain about it, and it's certainly not my intention is to complain. But even if you know what you're signing up for, that doesn't mean it's easy, or that it doesn't need to be processed. And
We're human. We're still human. Whatever,
yes.
right? Whatever suit we put on, or lab coat, or scrubs, it's like we're still a human being.
And my senior, mentors, it really was never talked about. And then I started to feel, well, it must just be me that's having this problem. And because I'm not enough, and, I quote, should be able to, figure this out. And I, through a lot of the work with you, have realized it's not just me, and maybe other people can figure it out. But for me, I couldn't, and I needed this time. And so that is, especially at our graduation for our residents, is my usual thing to say to them now, is take this time for yourself, along the way as well. But a reminder in front of my other colleagues and their families, that it's important to care for our patients to the best of our ability. We have to have that same emphasis on caring for ourselves as well. Even if your motivation is to take better care of your patients, even if you feel that it's selfish to do it for yourself, which it's not. But if you need a secondary motivation, I think we take better care of each other when we ourselves are in a healthier mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, there's something that's just it's coming up as you say this, and I would love again for you to speak into this because you have experience. I was talking with a woman, she's a nurse, and she loves her job, she's passionate about it, she's taking care of patients, and she feels like she doesn't really take any vacations or time for herself. Like the self-care thing has gone to the wayside, but it's this story of like she's caught mistakes. Like it's a little bit of that savior complex. I've got to be there. I got to take care of everyone. Like what happens if I'm not there? And, doing the extra time and all of that. And I know you've shared some of that too. It's like, I've got these patients, I'm saving lives. I'm like, if I were to not be there, give it the 100%, like am I no longer, it's not like serving my purpose. Am I letting people down? Am I letting this world down that's counting on me?
Yes. So, do I owe, because I've decided to walk this path, like what do I owe to the community or society? And it's interesting, I guess, on the one hand, logically, it seems like I should owe nothing. I made a choice. I've, paid my bills for med school and the education, and I've served a lot of years. But I guess going deeper than that, I've, have had the opportunity to gain this knowledge, and so it does, exactly how to explain it. It's, for me, not necessarily so much the savior complex. I have a great team. I think delegating is something I'm good at. I have amazing colleagues that I trust implicitly. So in my absence, I think things go smoothly. But in terms of, if I wanted to make a transition to something, it definitely is a voice in the back of my head saying, you've committed to this. Why would you walk away? Would you be, is there truly somebody who could step up and pick up the baton here? Or is it really incumbent upon me for future people that I might work with? Do I need to be there? So I guess that does sound a little bit like a savior complex in some ways. But I don't know. So, what I'm exploring, as I've looked into, spent this time on my own self-care, and maybe even a little bit before that, was in the oncology realm. I'm meeting people very downstream in the disease process of cancer development. So radiation's usually at the end of treatment, and obviously the cancer's formed due to circumstances much further upstream. And one of the self-care topics that we talk about a lot is nutrition, and that certainly plays into a lot of chronic diseases, including cancer. And so I'm not sure exactly where I want to work in this space, but that's where my strong interest of mine is developing, is looking, at from a little different perspective than I've been at. Not necessarily changing what I do, but at a minimum, kind of adding in things that are in our control. So I think most of us like to have control, but the cancer diagnosis control certainly goes out the window as a patient. But not everything does. And so these lifestyle modifications and these same things that you're learning for self-care, even when you're physically healthy, apply, if not even more, in the setting of a chronic disease diagnosis like cancer, both in prevention, but also in recovery and survivorship. So for me, it's all of the things you're teaching, Lauren, stress reduction, restorative sleep, exercise, being in nature, and nutrition. And so nutrition is where my current focus of interest is landing.
Well, what's so special, I hope you frame it in this way for yourself, which is like, a lot of times I haven't heard you say this, but I've heard women say, like, I'm doing a complete career pivot, or all of that was for naught, or there's like fear of letting go of that identity or that thing that we had to step into some other role or profession. And so much of what your why is to go into now this next path, like if we're always just on a path and it's a journey, it's like, it's just guiding you to this next opening in the journey, and all of your experience and all of your like knowledge is exactly what makes you uniquely positioned to do this next thing, whatever that maybe looks like and how it unfolds, right?
I think so. I hope so. That definitely has been, when I was feeling low on fumes and just wondering, taking that stop and 360 look around is where to go. I can go any path of the same direction, stay on the same one, or any angle of degree, 180 from this same path. Was how to, one, I wanted something that was calling me as opposed to just feeling pushed out. And secondarily, to not just walk away, as exactly as you said, from all of the work and knowledge and skill set that I gained in it. For a while, was feeling like that it's not possible. My options are stay on this path or go 90 degrees to it and walk away.
The
And
golden handcuffs, right?
yes,
Golden
mhm,
handcuffs are real.
they are real. They are very real. And so I'm moving maybe some baby steps along, an angle that's maybe 30 degrees right now. And we'll see where that continues to navigate. Um, but it really was taking that time to just slow down and rest, talk to people, have time to think. When you're on that path of go, 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 you don't have time to let new thoughts in. I get really good in that myopic focus.
Right.
But you're missing out on so much to that periphery. And so I'm just enjoying kind of where the view is here and the excitement of where it goes, whether it ends up staying on the same path or going slightly or totally different. And along that learning, I did learn that this is kind of the nerdy part of me is I'm studying now for a new certification exam. And I listened to a lecture the other night and I walked by, it's like board review book on the table. And I just smiled at that book. And then I laughed at myself, like, how does that make me so happy? But continuing to learn and grow. And I think when I was running low on fumes, it was that I was so just in that same track and kind of making a rut and just starving for kind of maybe that intellectual growth. And it's not that what I'm doing wasn't stimulating, it just wasn't new. And I think that's different than maybe running and jumping from one thing to another to look for fulfillment. It was just feeling stagnant, in an interesting space, but stagnant within that space.
Mhm. Okay, the visual that's coming to me right now as you're saying all this is like a few themes that have come through in our conversation. One is that sense of like letting go of needing to even know what's next. Like I just feel it in your energy of like, I'm looking around 360. I don't know, but that freedom of letting go in and of itself is like, it's a practicing act of faith and trust and all these things. And then, just picturing letting go. And then when you said that pulled towards something versus pushed to something, if we just think about that for a moment, when we are like magnetized, like a magnet getting drawn to something, how much more like effortless that is than someone like behind your back pushing, right? That like sensation.
Absolutely. And I think I physically felt that, before I kind of found something to be drawn to, I just felt this push and it was awful. It was uncomfortable and I wanted it to stop and you just wanted like, leave me alone. I was fine. And being drawn to it is like, maybe like takes your breath away in a good way of like, like I just can't, it's that anticipation of that forward momentum and the letting go. I think if I wasn't learning that with my daughters, I don't know that I would be able to learn that with my career as well. I knew at 15 that I was going to go to college, hopefully an Ivy League. I was going to go to med school. Didn't necessarily know oncology, but something, for me, has a lot of technical factors to it. We learned physics and biology and medicine and kind of that brought in a bit of a breadth of knowledge to it. And that was all planned. And then, I got through that, I climbed through that ladder and then was kind of like, oh, now what? I still have a lot of life ahead of me and I rushed to all of this and it's been great in a lot of ways. But I don't know that another 40 years on this I don't know if I'm feeling that right now.
Yeah. Well, you to take that step out of the whole track that you might have been on or the pressure that you felt to just say, I'm feeling pushed or it's not feeling right. And then just take this side step to say, I'm going to just sit at this out and I'm going to slow down and I'm going to do that 360-degree view. Sounds like is what made the space for the next thing to kind of grab you, because before it was just too much happening at once. You couldn't even, I don't think even if that was there, you were open enough to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even now, as I've slowed down, in my personal time, I do have those thoughts of I feel guilty. I used to work every night. I should be working. You're lazy for sitting here to watch the sunset. You should be, doing X, Y, or Z. And then to recognize that voice and then say to myself, no, this is where I want to be. It's okay. Like I'm giving myself permission to to sit here and read for fun and watch a sunset or sit and do nothing just because I can.
And
And it's still like every day, every day that I do this is, even taking my time to exercise for myself, I've just made it part of my habit. And some days I'm like, well, I should have jumped right into this or that. And reminding myself, like I saw a recent Instagram interview on Instagram that I really loved, which was, it kind of said, imagine that at the start of things, you're given a human to take care of, and how would you take care of this human? And at the end, it's like that human is you. And of course it is. But I think we might tend to forget about ourselves, and we're taking care of our family, in my case, my patients, my loved ones, and oh yeah, there's me too. Instead of like, again, back to, if I'm taking care of myself, I'm going to be able to better. It's better for everybody if we all take care of ourselves.
Okay. And before we wrap up, I'm doing these lightning round questions. So it's just what comes to your mind. Don't overthink it. They're fun. They're playful. So the first one is perfectionism, imposter syndrome, or people pleasing. Which one is the biggest thorn on your rose bush?
I think perfectionism, imposter syndrome hasn't been as much of a struggle for me. People pleasing is pretty close up there, probably with perfectionism. But I love the term. Maybe this came up in one of our sessions, group sessions, of you're kind of a recovering perfectionist. But I think it's held me back in so many ways. And I don't try things because I'm afraid I won't be good at them. And so I think there's so many things I haven't done that are even fun, or opportunities I haven't taken, or even, if I, at this decision now, if I end up changing directions in some way, I might not do it because it might not be wildly successful. For that, I probably learned the most from my daughters, who just has this beautiful, youthful way of looking, at the world, of saying, why would I be good at something if I've just started it? Like, who's good at everything? Who's, doing anything perfect their first time stepping out onto a field? And and I don't know why I have that expectation for myself. And she so clearly doesn't. And she just kind of looks at me like, well, how can you even think that? How does your mind work that way? And I just look at her and think, gosh, how amazing that you have that growth mindset, that of course it's not going to, I'm not going to be great when I start. And that's okay. That's normal. And it doesn't, I think this probably ties into achievement and perfectionism, where for me that overlapped a lot with self-worth. Well, if I'm bad at something, I must not be a good person, or have self-worth, and somehow in me that got mixed up and overlapped, and I don't think I'm alone in that. But for her, it's clearly separate.
Yeah.
She does things, and then she has her worth. And I think that's a really great way to look at things. I was listening to a talk for one of the sports psychologists for one of my daughter's teams, did like a parent talk, and she touched on this. She was an Olympian, and she struggled with this as well. And her advice was, or visual was, your self-worth and your achievement are two hands, and one goes up and down. You might have a day where you achieve a lot, one day that you don't, but your worth stays here. So whether you're failing or succeeding at things, your worth is independent of that. And you might have days where, you made bad decisions, and days where you were a rock star with character, and, and that can go up and down, but they're not linked. They're not going together. And I love that visual. And for me, I had connected them, and I don't know why, but the perfectionism
think a
tied
lot of
into
us
that.
do. I think a lot of us do. I mean, maybe I don't know if it's the achievement wound that we share, but that resonates. That's why I'm so passionate about the power of experimenting, because it disrupts the pattern and really creates that curiosity of, oh, what's the data we're going to find out from this then?
And I love that. That's really helped me approach different things of, you get the science behind it and collect the data, and it automatically kind of removes you and your self-worth from that equation. And you get to be quite a bit more objective, I think. And and then that can be fun because you're not playing with your self-worth, you're just playing.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm going to challenge you for, I know you, having worked with you, writing it's like in you. It's something that I think when you have the space and the time to make for it, it comes through you, whether it's writing poems or writing like your Christmas cards or writing your journal or writing with more intent. I think that creative part of your brain, I've had the awesome opportunity to see it flow through you, which I can imagine when you're a doctor, that doesn't get, unless you're writing prescriptions or notes from a patient, it's not feeding that part of your soul. So if I was channeling being a messenger to you today, Julie, it would be to not let perfectionism get in the way of your writing, however that looks. Okay, second
Thank you,
question.
Lauren.
Yeah. What's a lie that you still tell yourself?
Hmm. Well, I've let go of a number of them. We've probably gone through a bunch of those today. Um, Yeah, I think I've been in back to the Adam Grant theme at his podcast, Rethinking. I'm an avid fan of, and I think I've been rethinking so many of these things. Lie was my self-worth is tied to my achievement. My lie is if you rest, you're never going to reach your goals. If you try something and you fail at it, well, I guess it ties to self-worth, but you're not enough. But probably still at the end of the day, I think, you know, struggling with that, there still is self-doubt. I think as I look at writing, this a couple books that I have half started, and as I start to then get into my head of, probably everybody already knows this. Like, why am I thinking that what I have to share would be valuable? Like, isn't it obvious now? And I was the only one who didn't know. I seem to think that I'm this weirdo who can't relate to anybody else, that I'm so alone in these experiences. And maybe just as I was going through, I felt that isolation. So I don't know how to boil that down into it, but definitely as I'm kind of looking at what else can I bring either into my practice or expand to, share, especially within nutrition and how that ties into all of these health factors, again, physical, mental, spiritual health. I start to, the self-doubt creeps in, and maybe then that still is linked to the perfectionism. Maybe that doubt is an excuse to step back from that. So I'd say my husband is my biggest supporter of that. He reminds me that I do have knowledge and an insight and wisdom from my unique experiences that not everybody else has, and that it would be valuable. And even if it's not, it might just be valuable to me to put it out there, even if it doesn't help a single other person, and that's okay too. So.
Yeah. I'm going to reflect it back because I want you to just receive it how I heard it. And you tell me if it lands as I say the words. I'm hearing the lie you tell yourself is, I don't have anything new or original to say. It's already been said before.
Yes,
Go,
I think
yes,
that could
and
be.
building. We're getting closer to it. We're getting closer to it. So
Yeah. Um, I think that captures it maybe like at a more of a surface level. And I think getting deeper into that is kind of that underlaying of, and I'm feeling that because I might not be perfect, because I might not be enough, because who am I to be sharing this? It should be coming from somebody with, who's an expert in nutrition. Like, what do I know? I've just, been on this kind of journey and gaining some knowledge, but I'm not, the head expert in the country of, and realizing that even if everything's been said, that doesn't mean it can't be said again or be said differently. And how many, conversations do you have, and it takes the 10th time you hear something to say like, oh, now I
yeah.
get this. And, because it was presented in a different way or things like
Yeah.
that.
I remember I had a mentor, Michelle Long. She said to us women, she was like, well, she was talking about especially the work that I do. She's like, there's no unique messages, but everyone's a unique messenger. And that really hit me home because I had the same things like, oh, this has been done before. Oh, confidence, everyone talks about like all the things that I talk about. And I mean, even the seven daily habits, the seven sacred practices, Oprah's talked about them. Tony Robbins has talked about them. Like all the big people, like who's Lauren to think it's like going to be, different. And yet I can't tell you how many times I have had people say like, the way you said it clicked. This means something to me now. Like I'm ready to receive it. So I think that's a good message for everyone, all of us to remember is let go of that perfectionism or the ego that is trying to keep us from thinking it's got to be look a certain way or reach a certain number of people to be worth it and the impact, and just trusting that instinct, that voice. Yeah. All right. Last question. What is something that feels, we've covered a lot of edges for you today. So you might be like, I've gone there, Lauren. Like, what are you trying to get me to? But if there was something, if there's anything that feels a little bit edgy for you to share that you feel comfortable sharing today that's happening like in your life? What I always think of is, the edge, what's magical about it is it's at least where you feel that discomfort and that growth and that learning. It's not where we're like shut down and empty and completely gassed. And it's not where we're so triggered and we're so like pushing ourselves to the brink of, like a breakdown. It's flirting with growth. It's dancing with discomfort. And I think that's where like it keeps life interesting and wild, like as you kept saying, like wild excitement.
It does. And I think, before, maybe 2 years ago, before I starting the work with you and meeting this other women going through similar things, um, I didn't want to get close to the edge of anything. It was so much safer just to stay where I was doing what I was doing, and everything was fine. um, but the edge is different. The excitement is certainly a big part of it. Fear is there, and the nervousness you get with kind of peering over and not seeing a path. But there's also a lot of beauty with it. And I'm glad to be near it. I think I inch near it. I'm not, my level of to get my adrenaline going is a very low bar. So I definitely inch towards these edges as we've gone through things and did not run towards them. But now that I'm at them or nearing them, I'm excited to be there.
Yeah. One last thing I wanted to just touch on, because it feels like it's coming up, is you're a pretty private person. You've been a very like individual focus, like go down, get things done. And yet you have now experienced being in community and being with other women and realizing you're not alone. What's that been like for you?
That has also been a journey on the edge. Yeah, where's my edge? What I'm doing right now. I am by nature a very, very private person. And if a thinker, I go through a lot in my head before I voice it. And I find renewal in solitude. Of course, I love people. Enjoy being with people. But I spend a lot of time in my head, and I like it there. But it has, I went from some of those feelings that I was alone with in my head um, where I contributed to putting up walls and feeling so isolated, and maybe feeling like I was in this space that nobody had been in, and because I wasn't enough, and if I was just stronger, smarter, more extroverted, whatever, it would be different. But as those walls came down, I feel like I was able to look around, and there were so many people in this space with me that I just had put up walls that I put them up and blocked them out, or didn't peer through, or to see what else was going on. And it made me feel, certainly the isolation improved with that. It helped me feel more eager to move forward, that it wasn't, that there's something wrong with me that I'm in this place right now. But it's a normal part of life, at least for many of us, and not just me. And being able to give and receive in that space has really helped me, I think, heal and grow and learn and change. And that would not have happened if I had stayed within those walls. I think I would have just kind of continued to sink in there. Um, and it brought fun to it that, so am I self-conscious of doing this? Yes. Am I going to rethink this 100 times tonight? What did I say? What did I mean? How could that be taken? Probably. But I can laugh about that. And it's okay. And maybe the women will watch it and think, nope, it's just her. She's a weirdo. But I'm more okay with that now. But I do think it's also possible, maybe likely, that people will watch it and say, like, yeah, I get that. I can see that, or, and that's part of being human.
I remember one of the cards that you had when we were in, I don't know if it was the retreat or if it was when we were like virtually pulling cards, but I think you got "We Are One."
I did. Yes, that was the first one, I think.
First one.
Mhm.
Okay. And just when you were saying all of that, it came right here to me. And it's like that message of "We are one." And I don't know, women, as they hear this, I think are going to resonate so much because they're having that same conversation in their own head. And to have another woman give a voice to it, it's like, oh, she's speaking what I'm thinking. And that creates such a level of connection and humanity, and like, okay, I'm not alone. And just that takes courage. It
And
takes a
I
lot of
wish I
courage.
had that card upstairs in my room, but the image on it is this little adorable little creature, kind of weird looking little guy or girl, like sitting on like a cloud, like almost like a tower of a cloud, like a cloud flume. And you don't see other creatures there, but you kind of get the sense that they're around on their own clouds. And I think that is probably exactly what I'm trying to describe, is I could only see me on my little cloud, feeling, up in the air alone on this, I couldn't go anywhere because that's all the space I had. And then when I was able to look around and see, oh, we're all here on our little clouds, and separate but together. And that's hard to even, I don't know what word to describe that, but there's a connection and an energy that is present if you stop to look for that.
Yeah. So feel that. We like to intellectualize things and put words around it, but it's a feeling. It's like, that's the
Yeah.
mystery, right? That is sort of that divine feminine that doesn't have always the structure and the language and the wording. It's just like, we're kind of grasping, trying to find it, but I know. Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for trusting me and trusting the space to be in the spirit of connection and voices and courage and letting go. Like, this was a huge act of letting go, and we didn't have anything scripted out. We didn't plan any of this. We just trusted that the conversation would take it where it needed to go. So I've had a lot of fun.
I did too, Lauren. Thanks for having me, and I'll always enjoy my time with you.
Happy birthday. Send the picture.
I will. I
This is a
will.
message for you.
Love it.
It's really funny because on the back, the pin is going the opposite direction. So it's
That's
not
great.
going the normal way. My brother got this for me one Christmas when I started doing my own self-development work. And again, I was like, he's always was the weirdo and the kind of kid in school that more, made fun of or teased. And he had to learn to embrace weird as not necessarily an insult, but more of like a differentiation. I'm unique. And I was always the normal kid that like no one ever used that. But so that's, I think, when I started hearing that word, that's how I started to think, this is a compliment, because that means I'm not just like everyone in the crowd,
Yeah.
eccentric. It's how you wrapped it. So, oh, happy birthday. I
Thank
adore you.
you.
I
Thank you.
can't wait to give you a hug in October. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you'd like to be in contact with our community, you can find us on Instagram and LinkedIn at Ivy League Sisters, or visit our website at ivyleaguesisters.com. And if you found this conversation valuable, I invite you to share it with another woman, another friend, another loved one, because it's through our sharing that we inspire one another and deepen our connections. Until next time, remember, you're not alone. We are in this crazy thing called life together.